Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In case you're new here, my name is Laura and I'm a PhD student of comparative literature in Germany. And today I want to ask the question, how can we read more in our daily lives and how can we integrate reading into our everyday life? I have 10 ideas for you how to make it easier to read a little more each day and how to make progress in the reading that you're doing. I hope some of them can be useful to you, and I will start right now. So the first idea would just be to just set realistic reading goals. It doesn't make sense to start from 0 and go up to 100, like just thinking, I haven't been reading consistently over the last few months, but now I feel like I can tackle the Lord of the Rings series within 2 weeks or something, because that's just too much. They are very dense books. There's so much going on, so much description that you will take a lot more time to understand and read them. So I think a realistic reading goal would be a good idea for the start. For example, maybe you can just start by reading something that's lighter or easier. For example, whatever you're into, like reading an easy rom-com novel, or reading like a crime story, something like a short story maybe, or also just poetry, something that gets you into the reading mood, just the idea of taking a book and opening it and smelling the pages, thinking about it, just feeling the pages between your hands, flipping through the pages, reading a little bit here, a little bit there, and just getting back into the reading habit and setting the goal. For example, just say, I will read 1 poem a day, or I will read 10 pages a day, for example. I will read one chapter a day or 1 chapter a week, whatever might suit your schedule, whatever you think could be making sense to you. Because I think that could really motivate you to pick up the book again, and maybe you can also even create a list for you and say, okay, today I checked off the 10 pages that I plan to read, and then you can feel good about it and go on the next day. Or when you end the reading session at the end of the chapter and it's a suspenseful book, you might look forward to read again tomorrow, and that could also make you help building this reading habit. Then I think a good idea for a second point would be to create a reading routine. So maybe you can just think of a time of day in which you would like to read. Typically, many people like to read before bed or maybe early in the morning after you woke up. You have your just first tea or coffee in the morning and you just want to take like 20 minutes or half an hour to just delve into whatever story you are interested in at the moment. I think that could be very nice. Maybe it's also a good idea to just have a specific spot where you're reading in, like maybe you have a favorite there or your couch, or maybe you even want to read in bed, or you want to listen to an audiobook. I think that can also count as reading, although you're not reading like with your eyes, but you're still listening to the story. And I think you could also consider that as a kind of reading. If that's something you're into, maybe go for a short morning walk and just listen to a chapter of a book. The third idea would be to join a book club. I have done that before and it's done wonders to my reading habits sometimes. I have discovered books that I wouldn't have picked up at all at another time, so I'm very thankful for that. And it also helps building like a consistency, because, for example, when you have a book club that meets once every month or every 2 months or even every week, every 2 weeks, I don't know, whatever suits your schedule, that could be very nice. And also having this kind of social activity could be a good idea, because you come in contact with others and you talk about the books, and that makes it a lot more interesting and more rewarding also, I think, because you are not left alone with the book and the story and with your own thoughts and feelings about it, but you can talk to others about it, especially if the book is a little bit more complex and you want to have an exchange with others. That can make a lot of sense, and it can also help building routines for reading and getting into the habit of like trying to reading at least 1 book a month, for example. The fourth idea is one of my favorites. It's just taking a book wherever you go. Sometimes I even take books when I go out to a bar or to dancing, although the chances that I'm going to read there are very, very low. But I still like it because like the feeling of having a book with you and just the possibility of reading is very good. And I think also sometimes there's situations when you have to wait, for example, when you're sitting at the doctor's or just waiting for a bus or waiting for a friend, waiting for something to happen. Maybe it's raining and you can't go outside or anything else, and you just have your book with you. You can open it, you can just read a few pages. And that's basically a good idea to just make it a habit of just taking out your book whenever you have some free time, when you're wherever out and about. You know you've got your book, so why not just read it instead of scrolling through, I don't know, Instagram, TikTok, whatever you're scrolling through. I think that's a lot of nicer, because in the end of the day, like I think most of us know that just scrolling through whatever app you're using on your phone, maybe, it doesn't really feel rewarding at all. Most of the time we don't even remember what we looked at or like all the impressions we got. But if we followed along a story or a poem or a drama, there's so much more reward and so much more experience that we can remember and that we can build on. Number 5, I already talked a little bit about, that is the idea of just embracing listening to audiobooks as well. I know it's not reading in the physical, like original sense, but it's still a good idea. I think I really love listening to audiobooks, especially when I do household chores, things that are just a little bit boring and you don't really have anything to do or to think about. Nothing is better than just listening to a compelling, wonderful, suspenseful story and just let yourself be swept away to other countries, other worlds, other places. I think that's a very good idea. Not everyone is a type for listening to books, to audiobooks, to stories, but they're actually a very, very good way to consuming books and to like sometimes also get into stories that are harder to read. I don't know if you know that, but for me some of the stories are a little bit boring, or it's hard to get into. But if someone has a good voice and they can talk about it well, I think that's so much easier to just follow along, and you just want to listen to that person because they've got a nice voice and they are able to bring some feeling and some emotion into the story, so it feels so much better. Number 6, utilize reading apps. I just recently discovered that for myself. I'm using Redo. It's a German app. I will link it below. I don't know if it's also available in other languages, but if in case you happen to be German, I can definitely recommend that one. Maybe you also like to read, to use Goodreads. I don't know, maybe there's also something called, I think, is it Storybook or something? I will have to look that up again, but some app like Goodreads or Redo, they are really good to just track your reading. You can also write little reviews and you can track your to be read pile, something like that. That can make a lot of sense too. Also because you physically see on your phone how many books you actually want to read or have to read or are planning to read. And it's not as overwhelming as having them on your shelves and not knowing where did I put the Proust again, for example. I think that can make a lot of sense too. You can also connect with others over the apps, and you can read each other's reviews and also recommend books to each other. I think that's also nice because most of us are so used to this social networking, social media stuff, that I think we can also use it for books. Why not? So then I think also replacing screen time with reading time is a good idea. I always realize when I don't spend so much time watching series or movies or something like Netflix, I have a lot of more time to read in the evenings. And I try to read at least like an hour a day, or it depends on the day, of course, but I think it feels really rewarding and nice, and it's a different way of engaging with the story than watching a movie, for example, because your own fantasy is so much more asked and used, and that is so nice and so much more interesting in the end. So just seeing how are you spending your free time actually, and just trying to replace some of the time that you don't really find rewarding through reading a little bit every day. The next one would be to just mix up your reading material. I got that idea actually from Rory Gilmore in the Gilmore Girls series. She's a very avid reader, and she always has different books from different genres to take with her, and also from like different topics, I think. For example, she has a poetry collection with her. She has a non-fiction book, she has a novel, she has a short story collection, and the topics are also very different. So most of the time she just carries around a bunch of books with her. I understand if that's too heavy for you. But I think it's a good idea, because sometimes you don't feel like reading that one book, and then you're like, I also want to read that. And as the genres are so different, I think it is easier to switching between, like, I don't know, a cookbook and a non-fiction book, for example, or a crime story, and then a love story. They are all so different that you can just switch between them easily, and it doesn't get boring. So if you're like feeling like the book you're reading is a little bit draining, boring, whatever it might be, you can just switch to another and still make some reading progress, and that can really feel good. Number 9 would be to make it an affair, like a social affair, like also including friends or family members, and maybe you can read together. You can just meet, for example, at a cafe, and everyone reads, and you talk a little bit to each other about the stories you're reading. Or you can also team up with someone and say, we can read that book together, for example. Or you can set aside a certain time when you want to read something together with someone. I think that's also very nice, because you can just share the reading time with someone else, and it doesn't feel like such a loner activity actually. So you're not just doing this for yourself and just with yourself. So you can also make it a social event actually. Number 10 would just be to reward yourself. If you, for example, especially as you're trying to build that reading habit, if you feel like you've accomplished something, for example, you finished the first novel that you wanted to read, you've been meaning to read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen for ages, and now you've actually managed to get through it, and you're very happy about that, and it has been a nice experience for you, you can just reward yourself by, I don't know, buying yourself a little treat, buying yourself a snack, buying yourself another book maybe to keep on reading, to keep on going. Anything that might motivate you. You can also consider buying a book journal, for example, or any kind of other idea that might inspire and motivate you to keep going. I think these are actually most of my ideas. I hope some of them could be helpful for you, or maybe give you some new idea how to read more often, how to enjoy reading more. And if you like the video, just consider subscribing to the channel, and also hit like, and leave a comment below if you want to. Maybe you have yourself an even better idea, and maybe another idea for me as well. I would love to read about that. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.